Lots of times when you're building a jet model more or less out of the box, you run into some pretty unrealistic intakes. Rather than getting a good view of those compressor blades, you just see a wall of plastic. This is the case on my 172nd Hasegawa FA-18E Hornet that I've been working on. It's a great little kit, but those intakes were a real letdown. But in this episode of Quick Tips, Pro Results, I'll walk you through the steps I use to create some realistic intake covers that not only hide those plastic walls, but also provide a little more visual interest to the build by breaking up all of that gray. Thanks to my friend Silvio for showing me this little trick. Welcome back to Flying S Models. I really appreciate you tuning back into the channel once again. I'll be putting up the full build video for the F-18 in the near future, but I thought I'd take a minute to show a really simple and quick method for making fabric FOD covers like those found on the F-18E intakes and exhausts. Let's take a look at the materials I use to make those covers. You'll find links to those, along with other products that are on my bench, in the video description below. You'll need some plain old Teflon tape used for plumbing and plumbing repairs. You'll need a razor blade to cut and trim the tape, some red acrylic paint, a flat tip paintbrush, and some tweezers. The first step is to cut off a piece of tape a bit longer than what you will need. Place the tape on a scrap piece of paper so that you can flatten it out and apply the acrylic paint. I like to use old plastic bottle caps to hold small amounts of paint. That way, when done, I just toss them out. Put a drop or two of paint in the cap. It always helps if you actually get most of it in the cap and not on your work surface like I did. Simply apply the paint with some long, smooth strokes to the Teflon tape. The tape is really thin and stretchy, so just be easy with it when you're painting so you don't lift it off of the paper. After the paint dries, you can lift it up from the paper with those tweezers. You can see that it's still really stretchy, and this will allow it to cover and then pillow or wrinkle a little bit over those intakes and give it a more realistic fabric look. Now, to figure out the overall pattern for the cover, I just used tweezers to place it over the intake. Like I said, it's really stretchy, but not tacky, so you'll have to work a little to get it in the right location as it tries to hang on to your fingers a little bit. Once I have it where I want it, I can take a pencil or a pen and mark the locations around the intake for where I will cut it to match the opening profiles. Just remove the tape and then place on a cutting surface, and using that razor blade, trim both the top and bottom sections to the right length and angles. You need to use a sharp blade to make sure you can cut the tape without tearing it. And since the tape is so thin, I find it easier to chop it instead of trying to slice it. With the tape trimmed, we're ready to install it on the intake. Just pick it up with a little surface tension from your finger or use those tweezers again. The problem with that surface tension method is sometimes the stuff would rather stay on your fingers than actually go over that intake. But just gently work it in place by sticking it to one side or a corner and then stretching it, so to speak, over the rest of the intake. I use those tweezers to do the fine adjustments to the location. There may be a few areas that as the tape stretches, the white from the tape actually starts showing through, but those are easily touched up with a little bit of that red later. Now, I would normally wait until later in the build to permanently attach the covers, but for the purposes of this video, I'll go ahead and do that now. To attach the cover to the model, just use a little white glue thinned with water. In this case, I have some already pre-mixed that comes in a spray bottle. I'll just pour a little out into another plastic bottle cap and make it easy to apply with a fine tip brush. Using that brush, I just carefully apply a little bit of the thin glue to the edges of the tape. I start on top of the tape, but then work a little under the edges and seal the tape to the lip of the model intake. I work around each of the left and right side edges as well as the top and bottom of the cover. Once the FOD cover is down, I go back over it with a little more of the glue to stiffen the cover up a little bit. And that's a wrap on another Quick Tips Pro Results video. This time, one that shows you how to easily make and install realistic intake covers on your jet models. You can spruce up those covers even more by applying some numerals, some lettering, squadron emblems, and even some remove before flight tags to them. Again, I appreciate you tuning back into the Flying S Models channel and hope that you found this video informative and helpful. We'll see you next time.